to be something, I sensed that they weren't allowing themselves to be.
I know many people who consciously choose relative happiness, and they are change makers in the world.
Mhm.
Absolute change makers in the world, relative to the world and relative to the finite being in the world. They are change makers. So that's just, there is no judgment here. We're exploring, we're having a very fluid, accountable, in a way, conversation. Okay, question. I have been fortunate enough to know such a person. And when I say fortunate enough, the dynamics are so interesting. But you've read about people who win the lottery. We're not talking about people who win a little bit in Vegas or Prague or wherever you have these centers for unusual events, where all of a sudden you go from penniless to being a millionaire, trillionaire.
Or you go from being a loved part of us on YouTube to that we have to say goodbye. But if you'd love to join us and be a part of us more, click the link underneath. Join us now, join us next time. But 3 words: click the link. Okay. And we'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So the question that is often raised throughout the kind of world of psychologists and even neuroscientists, why and what happens often, more than often, to people who have been graced with the winning of the lottery, amongst the percentage, why is the suicide rate, the taking of their lives after they have amassed a amount of money and funds that would be more than multiple lifetimes? Where and in what way does that become such a common, trackable statistic? Just, again, absolute happiness, relative happiness. So very, very, very interesting to explore this. So
we did that.
We did.
Okay, we're going to do it. Let's do a theoretical exercise, all right?
Pen and paper again.
I want you to look for happiness. Your eyes can be open, your eyes can be closed, but look for happiness. However that feels to you, whatever that means to you, look for happiness and then write down or make a note of 2 things. A, where did you look? And B, what did you find? So let's do that, and then we have one more coming afterwards. Look for happiness. Where did you look? And what did you find? Okay, take another 30 seconds. Good. Okay, next question, or a little exercise. To be happy, we'd like you now to write down approximately two things that you would change and why. 2 things that you would change, and after those, if you'd like to, then write down and why you might make those changes.
Okay, I want to read something because you've all commented here, and Harry writes something. We're about to not only acknowledge a beautiful example that Harry gave in a L&L sharing on Facebook, but he writes something here. It must be all that birthday juju he's got going on. Happy birthday, Harry. Um, Harry writes, seeing happiness is seeing your nature. Looking for happiness is saying it's lost.
That's so beautifully concise.
It's concise, but I want to be very thoughtful here. It's not lost. You can't lose something that you are. And that's why I think it's really important to recognize that this diffusing of the infinite nature of our being, unnameable, irreducible, not of space and time, but as we know through the reconnective healing experience, in recognition of.
So I think what Harry's saying is looking for happiness is not that it is lost, it's saying that it's lost. Do you ever go, I can't find this, I can't find this. I know it's not lost, but I can't find it. And that's what we're saying. So when we're seeing happiness, we're seeing our true nature. When we're looking for it, we might not be.
Right. And at the same time, I want us to suggest that the veiling of happiness is the experience of all finite beings, all finite people, places, animals, nature. Let us not create a judgment. It is the experience of the infinite experiencing itself. So we are not looking to explore anything other than how you identify absolute versus relative happiness. What do you choose and why? And this is freedom. You can't claim multidimensionality if, in a way, there isn't a recognition of both your absolute versus and relative happiness, or said another way, your infinite, irreducible, unnameable being, and your finite, limited, diffused body-mind experience. So the precipice here is awareness. And in a way, Harry's example that he used was, and this is so easy for us to notice. A smile breaks through the face of a child who is trying to remain angry and upset. Take yourself there. Whether you have children, you walk down the street and you see a child in a tantrum, whatever it may be, there's an interruption, and that child breaks through on his face.
The nature of the child breaks through in that smile. When the smile breaks through, it is that child's nature. So the child is struggling to present him or herself in one way, trying to remain angry. I'm going to be angry.
A state or a feeling.
Right. And the true nature of the child, which is not the state or a feeling,
is breaking through what isn't the child.
Right. So the true nature really is, the state is really no match for the true nature.
So sort of in your exploration and your inquiry here, I would say if you're someone who moves in the range of happiness and depression, or happiness and the obscuration of, or the diffusing of happiness, then there's tremendous freedom to move through this sort of awareness scale. and recognizing that the happiness that we are constantly bringing itself back to itself in a way is the nature of consciousness. It's the nature of consciousness, one entity. It is the nature of oneness.
And awareness. So when we are not aware, you could say it is misery. When we lose awareness to the content of our experience, we think it's the experience's content that's creating the unhappiness, but it isn't. Okay, let's say, all right, we'll say it again. So when we lose awareness to the content of our experience, we think that it is the content of the experience that's creating the unhappiness.
And let's look at the lotto winner. The lotto winner received money and maybe was buying a lotto ticket every day because thought and believed that winning the lotto would create the happiness. And in receiving the money, the search for happiness continued. And when it wasn't found in the search, that lotto winner chose home. I mean,
in a different way.
In a different way. but this is, I think, important. If happiness were ever actually absent from your being, you wouldn't know what to long for.
What to feel unhappy about. So where this is going is when we lose our awareness of the content of our experiences, we said we think it's the experience's content that's creating the unhappiness, but it isn't. It is our desire to be our true nature. That, well, it's the desiring.
It's the longing.
The longing does not allow us to be happy, because we know that when we are our true nature, we are happy.
So it's the longing that brings us to our true nature every time, even in death. It is the longing. And it is beautiful, whether you look at it in nature, whether you look at it with your children, or whether you look at it, I have this little plant and it moves through its cycles. And to me, it's tremendous recognition to watch relative and absolute happiness continue to cycle as one sort of understandable, both visually as well as energetically on all levels, one beautiful example of this. So how will you become my plant? How can each of us be in that awareness, be so happy to be happy? That's Veronique. Yes, but recognize that when the state or feeling of relative happiness comes to an end, which it will every time, that is the nature of everything finite in experience. It has a beginning or an end. But there is no beginning or an end to absolute happiness. Yet, you and I in body mind can only get so close to absolute happiness. We can't be absolute happiness or absolute peace or absolute beingness in, we'll say, the experience of a person. But to knowingly choose that no relative happiness is irreducible. All relative happiness is reducible. So we begin to look at the experiences of relative happiness, the advancements, the lessons we explored at the beginning or the end of last month, losing normal. those things we would never, ever willingly choose to relinquish being taken from us. And yet everything that emerged from that we wouldn't willingly return, even if it meant we got back what was taken. So this inquiry becomes, I hope, very spacious.
Yeah, you know, I want to also interject the concept of relative obviously means by comparison. I mean, relative happiness does not mean making your grandmother her favorite meal, and relative unhappiness is taking it away before she gets to eat it. It's a different kind of comparison. So for example, I'm thrilled with my car, and my car is better than my neighbor's. And now my neighbor got a better car than me, and I've got the same car, but now I'm not so happy. It's relative happiness in a sense. It requires a comparison. When we step out of comparison and judgment, the happiness is just what the happiness is. And that's an important thing to bear in mind. Sometimes when we're not feeling happy or not feeling happy for long, it's because we're comparing and contrasting the happiness we experience to other times or states that we were in. And when we let go, right, when we let go of those comparisons and those judgments, we suddenly may discover that we've been happy all along because we are happiness.
And yes, the reconnective healing experience is reconnecting to your absolute happiness in a way. And yet, really, the freedom or the peace. Lexi, you wrote something in terms of, but knowing the suffering is finite and there's absolute happiness here too helps me with that suffering. I would also consider that suffering is the reminder of absolute happiness. It isn't that the bringing the suffering to an end brings about the happiness.
Hey there, family. Dr. Eric and Jillian here.
Welcome, everyone.
And we're very excited about Reconnective Life, our first online global community. This is the most exciting way we've been able to get together since I founded the Reconnection. It'll be a place where we can do things together. We'll move into breakout rooms at times when that's appropriate. We'll have energy interactions and meditations and exercises. In other words, expect things you haven't seen before.
You are so charged.
Things
He is so lit about every new way we get to be together every day. Just be together. Let us just speak a little bit about what is going to be the shape of this community.
In this community, we can share and discover more. Here we can talk to each other, we can chat, we can learn from and about one another. Jillian, me, our life leaders, and you will be in daily conversation with you. Weekly, we will have Facebook Lives.
We will be with you every Wednesday. Sometimes it'll be just Eric. On occasion, it might just be me. Sometimes it'll be the two of us. It's all about giving you a way to look at the week living in the frequencies.
And in every fourth week, we will include a live Q&A so we can talk about things that have been coming up for us, discuss back and forth, share, grow, expand together.
And the ever-growing library of content that has been created over 20 years that will be on demand for you. It will be on-demand content for you to view, enjoy, share again with your inner circle.
And monthly, we are going to have live Zoom retreats. We're going to bring in some exercises and experiences and things that previously we've reserved for our physical retreats, you know, when we were in the different location resorts and things. And we're modifying them so that we can work with these with you in your home, in your living room, in your den.
Put into the chat line, what is facility?
We're having these weekly Zoom in-depth Q&As.
finally they have a place and space to just define what does that really mean, living in the frequencies.
This is something that is in all of us.
Everyone can do this.
It doesn't matter how many levels you've gone through or how well you know the programs. It's a community that allows us to recognize how interrelated we all are as receivers of energy, light, and information.
See you there.
Reconnective life, living in the frequencies every day.